So yeah, it's true. At 34 years old, I really did walk away from the safety and security of what most of us out there would call the rat race. At the time, it was a stable agency job that I had, a predictable salary, and a sensible career path. I was earning 24 grand a year, so nothing special, but I had good bonuses, solid perks, and I could see clearly in front of me the path that I needed to take to progress through the company if I wanted to. And I left. I left it all behind. I didn't leave with a huge safety net either. I had about 5 to 6 grand saved up, and that was literally it, which at the time would have been roughly 3 months' wages if I was careful. I had a mortgage to pay, credit card debts, and monthly bills that didn't give a shit about my ambition or my dreams. Now, luckily for me, my missus has a very well-paying job, and yes, that definitely eased some of the pressure. I'm definitely not going to pretend that it didn't, but I didn't want to rely on her income. I didn't want to quietly lean on that as my safety blanket, and I needed to know if I could build something for myself. I needed to know if I was capable. And that question became louder than any of the other fears. The moment that pushed me out of the rat race wasn't anything dramatic. There was no explosive arguments, there was no big resignation speech, there was no cinematic turning point. So I'm sorry if that's what you're looking for. It was just a normal working day, a normal day in the week, another one of those days where I really didn't want to get out of bed. When I first started that job, COVID had literally just started, and I was a junior developer at the time, and I ended up working completely remotely. So I had no in-person mentorship, no team energy. It was just Slack messages backwards and forwards, deadlines, and lots of self-doubt, and I felt totally isolated, and I felt totally left behind. I was constantly questioning whether I was even good enough at the job that I was doing. I remember one morning just sitting there staring at the ceiling when I was in bed, and I was just thinking, I can't do this for the next 30 odd years. And my missus looked at me that day and she said something really, really simple. She just told me, don't do it then. Save some money up, build something quietly, and just go for it. That for me was the turning point. That was it. Nothing dramatic, just that clarity in my mind that now was the time to get out of that rat race. But here's something important. I didn't leap, I stepped into it. What I did was I started building websites in the evenings for friends, for family, for pretty much anyone who'd give me a shot at the time. I worked my full-time job at the agency during the day, and I was building the projects and building my business on the side slowly at night. I squirreled money away during that time, and I cut back as much as I could where I could and stopped spending on things that didn't really matter. When I'd actually got between £5,000 and £6,000 saved up, that's when I went into work the next day and I handed in my notice. I can remember back to that day when my boss told me how hard it'd be to do it on my own, and he asked me over and over if I was sure I wanted to do it, and he gave me a bit of a lifeline and said if it went wrong, I could always come back and ask for my job back. And I remember smiling confidently, but remembering at the time, I was absolutely cacking my pants terrified. Here's the uncomfortable truth about leaving a salary and leaving that safety net behind. The biggest danger isn't going to a lower income. The biggest danger for me is the panic. What panic does to you is it makes you reactive. It makes you underprice things. It makes you start wanting to say yes to work that you know deep down you shouldn't really take. In the beginning, I did all of that many, many times. Been there, done that, and got the t-shirt over and over again. The first couple of years of running my own business definitely weren't anything glamorous. I was paying myself around about £1,700 a month, which in today's money is absolutely abysmal. When you divide the amount of hours that I was doing by the amount that I was actually paying myself, I was on absolute peanuts. I was working evenings, working weekends, the constant mental load, constantly thinking about where the next client was coming from. In all honesty, I thought by moving into my own business and starting my own business that I was buying freedom. Instead, what I ended up with was an even worse job than what I'd just left. At the start, obviously, every invoice mattered, every client mattered, every mistake at that point in time that I made felt like proof that what my boss had told me previously was actually right. I massively underestimated what running a business solo actually really involves. Building websites, that's a skill. That's something that I know how to do with my eyes shut. But marketing yourself is another thing completely. Selling feels uncomfortable. Following up feels awkward. Talking about money exposes certain insecurities within yourself. I had no clue how to properly build a pipeline either. I was relying on word of mouth. I was relying on referrals, and quite quickly, the word of mouth, the referrals, they dried up. Clients left me at certain points, which is just part and parcel of running a business. Unfortunately for me, I had no consistent system to actually replace those clients as they left. At that point in time, there literally genuinely was months where I thought I've made a huge mistake. One of the lowest points came a couple of years into me running my business. My biggest client, I'd probably say at the time, pretty much my only client, responsible for paying pretty much all of the money into my account every month, left. He was paying me a healthy monthly retainer, he paid on time, and he, like I say, he covered a large chunk of the money that was actually coming in, and that literally disappeared overnight. I can remember having the phone call with him and feeling physically sick when I came off the phone, just thinking, what the hell am I going to do? Because obviously that money that was coming in wasn't just money, it was my stability, it was my reassurance that the business was going in the right way. Suddenly it just all disappeared. There was no system, there was no process, there was nothing there to actually replace it. I had no consistent lead generation. I was just left scrambling completely and utterly. That fear hits differently when it's your own business, when there's nobody to blame. I can't blame the company. I am the business. That's when something shifted for me. I realised at that point in time that I hadn't built a business, I'd built another job. That's not the reason why I'd left a job in the first place. I'd left the job to build a business. Going back to around about that same time, so two and a bit years in, I made another monumental mistake, and this one was a big one. I got distracted. I started consuming all this guru content on social media, talking about coaching offers and scaling strategies and selling high ticket promises. I convinced myself that maybe I shouldn't just be building websites. Like, what's the point in just doing that, sitting there for 40 hours a week? Maybe I should be coaching other freelance web designers. I got it in my head that it sounded impressive, it sounded scalable, it sounded like the next level, it sounded like the ticket for me to basically work as little hours as possible and make as much money as possible. And guess what? It didn't work. Basically, I wasn't established enough. I didn't have enough proof. I'd not been in the game long enough myself to even be coaching other freelancers in the same position. I probably lost well over a year chasing that idea. It really hurted that year. It hurt a lot. And still to this day, it's something that I think back to. Not because it failed. It did fail. It was a complete and utter failure. But because it pulled me away from what I actually love doing. I'll tell you what the turning point actually was, and I wish I could say it was some big epiphany or some breakthrough moment, but it really wasn't. It was just boring, and I went back to what I'm actually good at, and it's as simple as that. Nothing special. I went back to the thing that I'm good at and what I enjoy doing, which is designing and building websites for small business owners. This time around, I built foundations. I called this point in time Northern Source 2.0 because it kind of felt like a complete reboot of the business from where I'd started. Started with a proper marketing strategy, doing regular outreach on LinkedIn and other social media, consistent content I was putting out every single day, putting stuff like CRM systems in place and follow-up processes, doing all of the things that a proper business would actually do, stopping hoping that referrals would save me and stopping relying so much on word of mouth and the referral side of things. Slowly but surely, I built up my own pipeline. Something else changed as well, because at that point, I actually, for the first time, stopped seeing myself as just a freelancer trying to get work, and I stepped it up a little bit in my own mind and started seeing myself as a business owner who had to go and find the work to keep things going. That identity shift changes how you do stuff like your pricing. It changes how you communicate to people. It changes how you show up on the day-to-day basis. And all those things, in all honesty, is what really has changed things up for me now in the last couple of years, where the business is starting to go in really good places, is having those systems, having those processes in place, and having that mindset in place that the marketing can never stop. Now, do I still feel fear? Absolutely, yes, I do, even 4.5 years on. Do I still feel anxiety about slow months? 1,000,000% I do. It's impossible not to do. The difference now is I don't fear the fear anymore. I've had recruitment jobs, I've had sales roles, I've worked in customer service. I even left everything behind in my mid-20s to go and do a law degree, hoping to become a solicitor at some point in time. I've tried 1,000,001 different careers in all of my time that I've been working. In every single one of those jobs, in every single one of those career paths, I always felt trapped. Now, even on the hardest days when I'm running my own business, I feel ownership. I feel like I'm doing it for myself, that it's all worthwhile. Every single day, even on the tough days, I feel the growth happening. I feel like I'm building something that really actually belongs to me, something that I can look back on in 40 years' time and think, yes, I've done that, I've built that, and that completely and utterly changes everything. Here are the 5 real lessons from me leaving the rat race at 34 years old. Freedom comes with responsibility, so don't ever confuse those two together. Panic is far more dangerous than low income. If you can control your reactions, that's what helps you to stay in the game longer. Number 3 is all about focus, and focus beats chasing any trend out there. Every time in the past that I've got distracted is the times that things have completely gone west and I've stalled in business. Number 4 is that systems beat motivation. Your motivation is waning, it's not always there, you can't rely on it, but your systems are always there in place. And number 5, you really have to grow into the person that your business demands you to become, and the pressure changes you if you let it. So if you're a small business owner just like me and you're trudging through that messy middle of growing and running a business on your own, how was the first few years for you in business? Let me know in the comments below, I'd really love to know. And if you haven't done so already, like the video, I'd really appreciate it. Leave your comments below and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Ta-da!